1966. Pretty exciting time in the country, in the United States. We were coming off the assassination of probably one of the most popular U.S. presidents we'd ever had, and that was John F. Kennedy. And Lyndon Baines Johnson was the president. Of course, he had taken the oath of office after the assassination of JFK. So, anyway, there was a young rodeo rider, an aspiring author by the name of Roger Patterson, who lived in Yakima, Washington. And he had gotten interested in a subject that was basically, it was something that was known to the Native Americans, it was known to certain individuals in the Pacific Northwest since 1958. And that subject was the American Abominable Snowman, also known as Bigfoot. It only got the name Bigfoot in 1958 from Jerry Crew, after a series of footprints had been found in a logging, well, not logging, but a construction job, in Northern California in Humboldt County. But Roger had really been inspired by another author who had written a few articles for True magazine. That author was Ivan T. Sanderson, who was a naturalist. And in fact, he was one of the most popular naturalists on television. He'd appear on just about all the talk shows of the time. He'd appeared on Johnny Carson, and before that it was, I think, Jack Parr and Steve Allen and all these other shows. And he would always bring different animals on with him. Well, in 1961, Sanderson decided to undertake an authored book. He'd written other books about nature and about animals and things like that. But in 1961, he wrote this, Abominable Snowman, Legend Come to Life. And this is the paperback edition from 1968. This book is nearly 50 years old. But he also wrote an article in December 1959 for True magazine titled The Strange Story of America's Abominable Snowman. And he wrote this article about the happenings that were going on in the Bluff Creek area of Northern California. He was writing about what happened with Jerry Crew, him finding the footprints around the road construction equipment, and then he casted two of them on the advice and instructions of his friend Bob Titmus. So those articles were written, the first article was December 1959, the second one was March 1960, then eventually there was another one. I can't remember what the date was on that one. But apparently this was an inspiration to Roger Patterson, especially the original article. And he decided to start searching for this creature himself, or these creatures. Now, he heard somehow that there were reports of these creatures in his home state of Washington. He'd heard about sightings in the Pacific Northwest, and he decided to title his book a little bit of an homage and perhaps tribute to Ivan Sanderson's book, Abominable Snowman, Legend Come to Life. In 1966, 5 years after Sanderson's book, Roger wrote, Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? And in the book, he actually does credit Sanderson, and he gives, full praise to Sanderson. In fact, he also reprinted all the articles that Sanderson wrote in the book. And this edition right here is A third copy is copy number 3 according to the Roger Patterson's Snowman book. But this is a first edition. Now, this would be considered just a normal, ordinary, classic book, a vintage book, except for one thing. It is signed by Bob Gimlin, who was Roger's partner in 1967 at Bluff Creek, and by Tom Page. Now, for those who don't know who Tom Page is, Tom Page was kind of the money man for Roger Patterson and Dennis Jensen. After Bob Gimlin had been essentially cut out of all rights to the PG film and all appearances, Tom Page sponsored Roger Patterson and Dennis Jensen. He also sponsored Peter Byrne for a time. Tom Page was a businessman from Ohio, and I actually met Mr. Page a few years ago, so it's great to have an item that is actually signed. And this is Roger Patterson's book, and you can see, doesn't show it on this page, but right here it says, first edition, all rights reserved. Copyright 1966 by Trailblazer Research Incorporated. Now, one thing that seems to be missing from this particular copy, you may notice some staples right here. There was a couple of pages in the back of some of these copies, or maybe they wait a minute. Maybe this book didn't have that. But in some editions of Roger Patterson's book, there was a 2-page advertisement for his, you might say, I don't want to call it a fan club, but his Explorers Club. He had a bit of an Explorers Club, Trailblazer Research and things of that nature. And you could join it. You could get like different, you could get quote-unquote prizes and things like that. Well, not prizes, but items. You could get actual footprint cast or copies of footprint casts. And a after he shot the Patterson Gimlin film, you could get a 8x10 of frame 354 of the Patterson Gimlin film. And you could actually join his Explorers Club. So that was very exciting, I imagine, for a lot, even young people at that time. Now, Patterson's book was reprinted a few times, and it was reprinted in 1996 by Progressive Research, and that was Christopher L. Murphy and Renee DeHenden, who had partnered up, and they were producing full-frame poster art or posters of the Patterson Gimlin film because Renee owned the still rights. Anyway, they sold a black and white cover version of Roger's book. I used to have that particular edition. I don't have it now, but I did at one time. You can read Eugene Badd's Roger Patterson's Snowman book to read all about the different editions of Roger Patterson's book, including this one. This one was published by Hancock House in 2005, The Bigfoot Film Controversy. Roger Patterson's complete book, The Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist, with an update supplement on the famous Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film, and it's material that was written by Christopher L. Murphy. And I'm going to show you the actual, now this is the material that Chris Murphy added about the Patterson Gimlin film. I'll show you these full color frames and full page frames. That's gorgeous. That's beautiful right there. That's really beautiful. Whoop. You can see these are full color prints. I'm wondering if these are from the Chrome prints from Bruce Bonney. I think they are. You can see the different aspects and all that. Some really gorgeous glossy full color photographs. But what I really wanted to show you was right here. This is Abominable Snowmen Club of America. Yeah, these pages were included in some editions of the original book. You could get a 2-year membership for, let's see, how much? $5.95. That's not bad at all for at that time. Yes. You could get an official membership certificate. You could get 2 great 12-inch long-playing record albums with actual recorded interviews. Yes, so if you were part of this particular newsletter, or this, not newsletter, but this club, you could actually hear about all these accounts. The Abominable Snowmen Club of America. So, and I thought perhaps this edition of the book had at one time those pages in it, but I'm not sure if it did or not. So, but next I'll be showing you the current Hancock House edition of Roger Patterson's book. And I'm also going to show you a hardcover version of Ivan Sanderson's book, which is pretty cool as well. I got it off eBay. Basically, this is this is a video about all of the different editions, and of course the inspiration that Roger took from Ivan Sanderson to actually search for the Sasquatch. Now, I imagine that Patterson learned about the California reports from the articles he read from Sanderson, and Bob Gimlin always talks very highly about Sanderson's book, and that anybody who is interested in the subject should read Sanderson's book, because Sanderson's book was the first to focus on what he called HBMs all over the world. Roger's book was the first to focus on the creatures in America, in North America, more particularly the Pacific Northwest. So they both were part of a first. And that's why it's important to have these books and to preserve them as well, and make sure that they're available to read for future generations. Now, of course, Patterson's book consists a lot of newspaper clippings and even a little bit of personal research that he did himself. But, I mean, it's an important book. It's an important book to have in any cryptozoology collection. At least I think it is. So, but, you know, if there's things that you really want to know about Roger Patterson and about his research, you definitely want to read this book. I would argue perhaps maybe some of the information in Greg Long's The Making of Bigfoot told a little bit of a story about Roger, but it also told it from a very, very nasty perspective. Yeah, Greg Long's not a very nice guy. No, he's not. And he does not seem to like Roger Patterson. It's almost as if Roger peed in his cornflakes one time. But this is one of my favorite books. I really liked it. I really enjoyed the book. And certainly, I hope this has given everybody some perspective on Roger and why he was inspired to call his book "Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist?" I think it was because he was inspired by Ivan Sanderson and by Sanderson's book as well. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. And enjoy my other two videos for this week, the new HBM's Cryptid-Corner video, and also my video about the Legend of Boggy Creek restoration. And I'll actually link those videos to this one. I'm going to cross-pollinate and link all the videos together so you guys can check them out. And until next time, y'all be good or be good at it. This has been a special HBM's Cryptid-Corner video. Okay, I'm going to show you, that's the copy, the newest copy of Roger Patterson's book, "Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist?" I have not received that copy just yet. I will be receiving it soon. But that is the newest edition. This is the 9th edition, according to Eugene Badd's Roger Patterson's Snowman book. He has not covered this edition in that book, but it is the 9th edition. And then Ivan Sanderson's original hardcover of Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life. I'll also be receiving that at some point. So that kind of concludes this particular look at Roger Patterson's book and the influence by Ivan T. Sanderson. Thank you very much for tuning in. Y'all be good or be good at it. Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? Author Roger Patterson. The newest offering from Hancock House is a very fascinating look at some of the early history of the Bigfoot legend in America from the man who would, 1 year after the publication of this tome, film an actual Sasquatch in Bluff Creek, Six Rivers National Forest, Del Norte County, California. Ivan T. Sanderson was also a major influence on Roger. It was Sanderson's article in the December 1959 issue of True magazine that Roger read, which inspired his search. And the title of this book is a modified version of Sanderson's book, Abominable Snowmen Legend Come to Life, published 5 years before. These 5 chapters are chock full of newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and personal interviews from the early days of Bigfoot research in the Pacific Northwest. The Albert Osmond story is recounted here, as is the Ape Canyon and Bauman stories. However, it is obvious that Patterson's fire and passion for the subject is evident throughout the book. He really was very interested in the subject and took it very seriously. He also speaks of track finds and expeditions he himself undertook into the remote areas of the states of California and Washington. Those 5 chapters, written circa 1966, comprise the first book devoted exclusively to Bigfoot Sasquatch, which Roger called the Giant Hairy Apes. This book is a worthy addition to any library and very highly recommended. It can be purchased at HancockHouse.com.